evening from Antioch College. We are starting our fall Tele-Townhall tonight. Thank you for joining us. At any time, you may dial *3 to be able to ask a question on air to our guests. Tonight for our Tele-Townhall, we're welcoming President Tom Manley, the president of Antioch College. You might have received the State of the College letter written by Tom in your mailboxes this week. If you haven't received it yet, maybe you're on the West Coast, you'll be receiving it next week. So this is an occasion where you can ask Tom all of your questions, any follow-up questions you might have about the state of the college. We also have 3 lovely first years for you tonight. Since the class of 2022 has arrived on campus, there's been an amazing new energy. It's really infused new blood into the life of campus. So we wanted to share that energy with you tonight so that you could get to meet a few of our really remarkable, enthusiastic, and talented students and get to know them. So I will let these 3 students introduce themselves. And don't forget to press *3 if you want to be put on the air to ask them or Tom a question. Delaney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Delaney Schlesinger-Devlin. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I will hopefully be studying psychology with a capstone in French when I'm here at Antioch. So I actually heard about the university through my parents. They were both alumni here. They met and married here in about 95, 96. So I've kind of always heard about Antioch and had Antioch stories told to me. And after the closure and then reopen and there were college tours again, my parents told me that I had to come and I had to try it out. And I told them I would never, ever go here, that it was a weird school in Ohio that was just not for me. But then I went on the college tour, and there's just a lot of really cool energy that's here and a lot of really cool programs and ideas that Antioch is just fostering and growing, and it made me excited to go to college. So I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Thank you, Delaney. Good evening, Kate.
Good evening. My name is Kate McCall. I go by they, them, theirs. I am actually a first-year transfer student. I was previously studying creative writing, and I realized that I wanted to get a degree in something where I was able to work outside of myself. So I took a little time to figure out what I really cared about and how I could change the world, and I ended up deciding that I wanted to come to Antioch for their self-design program. So I chose social justice through environmental restoration with a focus in food policy. And I really love Antioch because of the energy here, as Delaney was saying, and the ability to really craft your interests and to leave more well-rounded and not just educated, but as a better person. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Kate. Good evening, Asher.
Hi, I'm Asher Ruck. I'm also a first year, and I'm planning to study global studies with a focus on Spanish. The way I heard of the school is from something I like to call the Antioch Reach. I heard about it from 2 different people in my life, my 10th grade government teacher and my rabbi. What I really like about the school is how it's so small but such a tight community that everywhere you go, you are just surrounded by learning. Sometimes it's impossible to get away to, but other times you are looking for it always, and it's there.
Thank you, Asher. And let me introduce myself. I'm Jeanne Kay. I'm from the class of 2010, and I'm a member of the Alumni Board. And I'll be your moderator tonight. So, Tom, we have some pretty remarkable first years this year. Would you like to tell us more a little bit about our admission strategy as we wait for questions? People can dial *3 if they want to ask a question.
Thanks, Sean Kay. Hello, everyone. Really great to be with you again, and great to have these amazing students with us. So I would say the admission strategy really has been, since the college has reopened, to both identify those things that we need to do as a small college, that those needs that aren't being met, and connect those to the deep flow of Antioch values that go back to Horace Mann. I'm just blown away by the group of students who came this fall. 3 good representatives. They are out and in the community, engaged in council and activities around the campus. I've been in higher education for 40 years, and I really say this without any qualification. It's one of the most remarkable groups of young people that I've had the privilege to meet and work with.
Thank you. So, as we wait for questions, let me ask you a bit about our new self-design major. We've just integrated a new curriculum at the college. And so when you were looking at colleges and you heard that Antioch College now had an all-self-designed curriculum, what did you think? Were you enthusiastic or were you skeptical? Delaney?
I was actually really enthusiastic. So I knew that I wanted to do something in psychology. I just didn't know what specific area. So the Design Your Own major is letting me specify and choose what specific area of psychology I'm going to later study. And then on top of that, it's letting me have the freedom to take really random classes that I am enjoying so much, but I would never have been able to take at another college. So it's been a really cool opportunity.
What about you, Asher?
Right. So Global Studies is a program that's common in a lot of schools nowadays. I actually applied to 34 schools. But what I love about Antioch's program here is that they force you to justify what you're studying. Everyone in our class is going to be proposing a degree plan, no matter what they're doing, if it's general psychology, all the way down to someone who's studying hip-hop education that I know of. But in this, we are going to have to justify the classes that we've taken, what we've learned, and be able to show that everything we're doing now is going to make us well-rounded individuals while we are able to specify in what's going to be in our degree.
And what about you, Kate?
So I know I already touched on it a little bit, but I specifically did come to Antioch for the self-design program. I came with an idea of what I wanted to study, and in my search for other colleges, I found where they have maybe an ecology degree or an agricultural sciences degree or an anthropology degree. But I didn't see a place that was able to infuse both culture and the landscape, and to me, those are inextricably connected. And so I was really interested in finding a place that I could study exactly what it was that I was interested in. And here at Antioch, I'm able to choose the exact courses that will put me on the path to a graduate program that will make a lot of sense for me.
Alongside with the new curriculum, we have a new tagline or slogan for Antioch, which is Own Your Education. Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about Own Your Education, where it comes from, and what it means?
Yeah, thank you. And I think it relates to what the three of you have just said. This idea that human beings have to be have to fit themselves into a system or an educational system is one of the things I think that Antioch has been struggling with in a good way, trying to constantly adjust to and create conditions in which human beings get to evolve and develop themselves based on their needs and the needs of the world that they see it, and not just their selfish needs, but the needs of something larger than themselves, and therefore connecting to a group. The idea of Own Your Education is not a you pay and therefore you get to get the pink slip and do whatever you want, run the car into the wall, whatever. It's about really taking responsibility, and responsibility for something that is going to be a shaping force in your life, a resource that you can draw from. When we developed this tagline, and it's much more than that, I think it's a sort of marker where you need to dig, right? Where the richest vein of life stuff and energy is going to be mined. When we developed this, we did it in conversation with generations of Antiochians and current students and some of the students that we were hoping would come to Antioch. And what they told us was they were looking for a place where they recognized they didn't know everything, but what they wanted to do is find a place that would recognize their capacity to know and what they already knew, and the importance of their being able to take responsibility for their education and for their lives. That's what Own Your Education means. And the notion of self-design is really the step that says, I'm going to take responsibility for claiming my education. And this is a place that has a platform that brings resources to help me do that. So I think it's something that, as I've talked to alums from many decades, that people resonate with, and especially around things like co-op and classroom and community.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to take our first question from a caller now. Don't forget to press *3 if you'd like to ask a question on air. Our question is by Peter Hochstein from the class of 61. We're going to put Peter on the air now. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, and hi, Tom. Good to talk to you again.
Hi, Peter.
Frank, as time I've been watching since the revival, how Antioch has been struggling. My concern is that we're not attracting enough students, and the reason this bothers me, it would be fine if we were a formidably endowed college and 30 or 50 or 100 students could be in a class and get an excellent education. But Antioch relies on its alumni for support, and if we have very small class sizes for a number of years, it means that as my generation and even generations after mine die off, there's going to be less support for the college. So my question is, are there any plans to significantly, and I mean really significantly, expand the size of the student body? And if so, what are those?
So I appreciate that question, Peter. The challenges for a small college, as we describe it lovingly, a 168-year-old startup in an environment where small colleges and big universities are being challenged around the financial model, around the demographics, the shrinking pool of students, of young people who can go to college and much less want to go to college. And these are extraordinarily disruptive conditions. And for Antioch to be this far in to its reinvention is really a remarkable feat. And I want to thank all the alumni that are listening in and the ones that aren't listening in for the amazing support that you've given us to make this possible. No other small college in the country can boast this level of support and, dare I say, love. But you put your finger on one of our main challenges, which is how do you become financially sustainable at the same time you're trying to steer towards something that is deeply felt and believed as important in the world in terms of education. Now, when the college reopened, we followed a strategy of offering full scholarships virtually for the first 5 or 6 classes, and we did that with the thought that gaining fast-track accreditation would enable us to quickly move to a more mixed stream of revenue, and mixed in a good way. That didn't happen after year 5 or 6, and so we needed to really make sure that we were creating a clear offer and promise to students that just because the name Antioch was out there wasn't a clear invitation for what they could do here. The Own Your Education value proposition, the new curriculum that we redesigned in record time in 1 year after we got accreditation, the new calendar that allows for incredible flexibility in December and July for alumni to come back and teach courses. A number of things that have been accomplished in the last 2 years position us, including a really great admissions team, position us to be successful in going and recruiting students. But it's going to take time. It's going to take 3 to 5 years before that stabilizes, and we have to continue to rely on the generosity of our alumni. We have to work very hard to make sure that we're using every dollar effectively. That's the best answer I can give you, Peter. It's a great question. It is the challenge of the moment. I believe strongly in our ability to become this new kind of college because of the 3 students that are sitting in front of me and the other 45 that came to the college with them.
Asher, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I would. So in this first year, I've noticed that we have an amazing culture that I think is going to help add students to the body. I know that I've already told some of my friends in high school to apply here. I know that other people have done the same. As well, this year's class has had such a social media presence. Everyone here is getting the word out. At Antioch, there's this thing that I like to call the Antioch Reach. And we talk about how wherever you go in the country, there'll be someone who either knows of Antioch or an alumni there. And I think what we need to note as important is that students already have this reach before we've graduated. And as we have that, we might be able to bring in even more students. I know many people have brought their friends to visit the campus, and I know many people hope to apply here for next year or even next semester.
Thank you, Asher. We're going to take another alumni question by Mary McCormick from the class of 1962. But first, let me remind you to dial *3 if you'd like to ask a question on the air. You could ask students what their favorite class is or give them co-op advice as well. So let's hear from Mary. Good evening, Mary.
Good evening.
How are you tonight? Would you like to ask your question to Tom or our students?
Yes. I wanted to say that I applaud the notion of self-designed education, and even in my era, I graduated in 1962, met my husband at Antioch, and we went off into the sunset together. I went on to graduate school at Boston University, and one of the questions I had, I am a clinical psychologist, also having majored in psychology, as one of your entering students indicated she was. The question I have, and I want to say that I valued my Antioch education greatly, and particularly felt that the co-op program, in which what you learn in the classroom informs a real-life experience out in the world, and vice versa, was particularly valuable, particularly to me in my field. But one of the things is in certain fields, certain professions, such as psychology, people go on to graduate school, and there are requirements. For example, psychology majors have to have taken statistics. Usually in graduate school, you have to have 2 foreign languages, and will be tested on that at some point in your graduate career. Are there faculty members who are aware of the requirements for entering graduate school in whatever fields your students have elected to study and want to go on to get a professional degree, so that they can inform the students that they need to take certain things in addition to whatever they plan in terms of a self-designed program?
Well, I believe we have a student here tonight who wants to go to graduate school to study psychology. So, Delaney, how has your experience been with faculty guidance in that regard?
So I've had a really great experience. So at the beginning of the quarter, we all got matched with our academic advisors, and mine is the psychology professor. And so far, we have met on a weekly basis, and he has already helped me start the process of Do I need to do research to go to the graduate school that I want to? Yes, I do have to take intro to statistics despite my not wanting to take a math class, and just an overall support of suggested readings that'll make me a more rounded student in psychology. And then on top of that, the college is supporting people who want to go to graduate school. I know in the next few weeks there is a graduate school college fair that the students can go to and get information about, which I know that I've been told by multiple professors that I should go to. And then there's also student workshops that will be coming out with our Student Success Center, who will be helping us figure out graduate school. So I definitely think there's a lot of support, and I'm not worried whatsoever right now.
What about you, Kate?
I just wanted to add on, yes, while we are making a self-degree program, it's not like we're floating out in the abyss of some nebulous idea of what we're studying. We have a ton of guidance from, as Delaney said, our advisors and other faculty members who realize sort of the basis of our chosen degree path and find the core of it and are able to guide us in such a way. For example, I'm doing sort of a science-based thing, so I'm going through school as though I were getting a bachelor's of science. Although it is a self-design, I will still need to meet requirements to graduate with an effective bachelor's in science.
Thank you, Kate. We're going to now take our next question or intervention from Karen Mulhauser, who is the chair of our alumni board and who is one of the most vivacious supporters of Antioch College. Karen, good evening. How are you?
It's great to hear your voice, John. I'm doing fine, and I'm really glad that this call was arranged, and hope a lot of us former students called in. I find that I'm spending a great deal of my time trying to create opportunities for former students to interact with future alums. And I want to underscore what I've heard from all of the students and from Tom about what an interesting and exciting program with the self-design. I think a lot of us, I graduated in '65. A lot of us thought that we were owning our own education, but this is a very different take on it, and with the full support of the faculty and the board. I hope that all of the alums that are on this call might think of coming to reunion or in some way visiting the campus. I did want to talk about a couple of things. One is in response to Peter's question about recruitment. The Alumni Board has taken on the task of creating a task force on recruitment. And if anyone is interested in being engaged in that way, and you could be in touch with the email address is alumnicoordinator@antiochcollege.edu. And we're just beginning this process to support the work of the admissions office and be a liaison between the admissions office and the alumni who want to help. There are ways that we can help. And my question for the students is, a lot of the alumni would like to make themselves available to mentor or offer career guidance in one way or another. And I'd be curious to hear from the students if that would be helpful. I mean, it's great to hear the comments about the good relations with the faculty and others, but are there ways that alumni, maybe who, like the one who just called in psychology, could be useful as a mentor or helping with career guidance? And depending on your answers.
I think Asher is eager to answer your question.
Yes, thanks, Karen. What I've noticed so far is that although we definitely have a great relationship between students and faculty, we also have a great relationship between student and alum. I know when the alumni came in the past week, we got to meet a lot of them. We got to eat with them at Birch. We got to hear a lot of their stories about co-ops. And I think, on one hand, that was incredibly inspiring. But on the other hand, it was a great way for the students to network with the alumni and within that, keep in touch with them. So I know now there's a couple of alumni that in the future I will be emailing and hopefully getting some more information in terms of their experiences as well as their advice. I love your idea about having alumni as mentors, and I think that many of the students would appreciate that guidance. I think anything the alumni have been doing on campus have been just an extra help to all of us here, whether it's been the alumni helping us do some of the facilities with the benches, or the alumni who come to meals and talk to us about their co-ops.
Thank you, Asher. And I think a great way for alumni to start developing those mentorship relationship with students is to visit them at reunion. And the reunion this next year is going to be from July 11th to 14th, 2019. So mark your calendars for reunions, and you'll get to meet students and start a relationship that can last for years and really impact the life of students. Don't forget to also dial *3 to ask a question on the air. And next, we're going to hear from Soleil Sykes from the class of 18. Soleil just graduated. How are you, Soleil?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to hear your voice. What is your question for our students or our president?
Yes. My question is for Tom. Hi, Tom. I wanted to follow up on the earlier question about fundraising. So besides increasing student-derived revenue and, of course, continued generosity by alums, are there any other major initiatives that are being looked at to help provide more money for the college? I'm thinking along the lines of the Antioch College Village and other similar initiatives. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for that question, and I hope you're doing well. We miss you. So there are 3 areas that we are looking and prioritizing for revenue. The first and the central one for us moving forward has to be revenue from tuition and fees that are related to what we think are extraordinary educational opportunities that we're offering. We don't believe that we can develop a model that relies on that source of funding alone. We will need to continue to have a very robust effort around philanthropy. But there's a third area that we think we can tap and we must tap, and that has to do with projects that result from our innovation. And there are several things you mentioned. Antioch College Village, which we hope the first pilot project will begin to break ground this coming spring. We're making really great progress. We have construction drawings, and all 8 of the first cottages are spoken for. That's one small example of how we can be innovative and develop long-term revenue for the college. But innovation really is about understanding what things in the world represent opportunity and how we can, within our mission, organize our resources and our creative efforts to meet those needs. So I'm really pleased that we have 2 programs right now, both of which are being supported by a donor in their kind of incubation phase, that will provide educational experiences to students who may not be matriculated to Antioch, but who really would benefit from the really strong work experiences that and that education that we can provide. So we are looking at that program, and we are also looking at, with our new calendar, how we can invite both alumni and others from other colleges and the wider community to come and take Antioch-like courses over more experimental time frames. So the December block, and then especially the block this next July and partially in August, will be opportunities for us to invite our alumni back to teach, to invite our current faculty and staff to put together interesting programs that we believe meet needs in the world and that will actually help us generate revenue. And thanks a lot for that question.
And as we diversify our efforts for sources of fundraising, we want to reiterate that it is still really so important to keep supporting the Antioch College Annual Fund. Every gift to the annual fund has a direct impact on the day-to-day educational experience of Asher, Kate, and Delaney. You can make a gift to the annual fund at antiochcollege.edu/donate, antiochcollege.edu/donate. There's also an envelope, a remit envelope, in the State of the College President letter that you'll receive either this week or next week. We're going to take another question from a listener. We're going to take a question from Beth Richards from the class of 2006. And don't forget to dial *3 to be put on the air. Beth, good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Beth.
My
How
question,
are you tonight?
Doing well. My question is, whoever wants to jump in. I know that you guys have made some adaptations in terms of the calendar and recruitment process to attract transfer students. It sounds like, Kate, that seems to be going pretty well. How successful has that been, and what is, how strong do we think that response will be moving forward?
So, Kate, you're a transfer student. How did you get here?
So there was actually a really fantastic option for me to come winter term. I was doing sort of a self-design co-op before I got here myself. And it was really flawless. Everything was set into place. I just really couldn't wait to be here, so I moved some stuff around to come fall term. But yeah, the mapping it out process was really pretty simple. I think I got an answer in probably 3 days from our head admissions counselor, Garriott. So yeah, I would say it's extremely accessible right now for transfer students, especially with the self-design program. If there are credits that are within your field of study that you're interested in carrying over, or even some gen eds, they push over really easily. I know that there is a little bit of fear around the quarter semester system, but all of my credits also transferred pretty seamlessly within that as well, so no qualms with the transfer process. Definitely welcoming transfer students. I do know that we also have in the incoming class, I believe, 4 other transfer students, so I would assume that it went pretty well for them as well.
Yeah, and I'd also like to chime in, Beth. We have, for the first time since the college reopened, multiple points of entry. And Kate was just mentioning that this is the first time that we're going to be taking students in the winter term. We're working on other pathways into the college. In fact, there's a project that that I mentioned before that a donor is supporting. It's called Pathways to Practice, which is a reference to our areas of practice, the 5 areas of practice at the college. And these are allowing us to create partnerships with identified community colleges and other 4-year colleges that we feel we have an affinity with, where students can come to Antioch and benefit from a long-term relationship rather than just have it be our sort of looking for needles in haystacks. We're looking for the haystacks where we know there are lots of Antioch needles.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to take a question from David McQueen from the class of 63. Good evening, David.
Good evening. Do you hear me there?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Well, okay, class of 63. I think for me, I mean, the Antioch experience was a great thing altogether, and I remember to this day, and of all the academic work that I've done over the years, and I've done a lot, it still remains fundamental. But one of the things that was most important was the work study part that I did. I had great co-op jobs, Boston Museum of Science, Chicago Museum of Natural History, really terrific jobs. And I wonder, well, what's the status of the work study program now, and how is that being incorporated?
Asher, would you like to take this one?
Sure. So one thing that we're doing as first years is we're taking a class that's devoted to planning our first co-op. In that, we're learning skills about marketing ourselves as well as how to do the research. As well, we have a lot of resources when it comes to finding jobs that students have already been to, as well as jobs that are connected to alumni. And I know personally, I started looking for my spring co-op pretty much week 2 that I was here. We now have 3 co-op advisors for our class. They are all fantastic at finding students jobs that are convenient, as well as things that will be interesting for them to do and developmental to their education. There are some opportunities on the list that I didn't even consider until my co-op advisor said it might add a new aspect to my education that I necessarily wasn't factoring in before. So I think the co-op program is going great right now. And I think that's what motivated a lot of my class to come here.
Kate, do you have any thoughts about co-op?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned previously, I sort of did a self-design co-op before I came, not knowing that was part of the curriculum right off the bat. And I was so pleased to know that it's instrumental in the education here that we have in the field work done once a year, just sort of to get our feet in the water, because sure, so we've moved to a self-designed program and you're heading your own future and you have to decide your goal before you get there instead of ending up with a degree and then saying, what am I going to do with this? And then secondly, you have to go and apply it, and there's a really interesting source of trial and error within that where you can find things, as Asher was saying, that maybe you didn't know you were interested in, or reaffirming that you're interested in something, or even figuring out, hey, maybe this was something that I thought I wanted to study and it's not for me anymore. So I think, yes, co-op is absolutely instrumental, and as Asher mentioned, also we have some incredible co-op instructors. I even know that there have been some sort of talking amongst them, whereas my co-op instructor has given me some really good tips, but a co-op instructor that is not mine that I'm in communication with has given me some really incredible connections with people around the states for me to communicate with, and the whole staff, by and large, is really committed to the idea that our education is experiential, and I'm really, really thankful that this school is beyond just institutional learning.
Thank you, Kate. How about you, Delaney? Are you excited for some future co-ops that you've been planning already?
I definitely am. So I'm actually going to try to do all 4 of my co-ops international. The first one that I'm trying to apply to is in Greece. And my co-op advisor has been very supportive of me bouncing around from idea to idea and just finding pathways to different people and different organizations that could be a way to achieve this somewhat far-fetched of a dream. On top of that, there is a co-op list that we are always adding to and that they have told us about so many times that has been very helpful in choosing which co-ops we would be interested in. So that's been very helpful.
I know that as part of the new curriculum, we're giving more academic credits to co-op. How does the co-op program, as it's been experienced by our alumni from the 60s and 70s, how does it fit into your vision of Own Your Education and the areas of practice?
That's a great question, Jean. So if you think about the idea of claiming an education, as Adrienne Rich had written and spoken about, the idea that you would go out into the world, which is Arthur Morgan's initial idea for co-op, to take the liberal arts and use it as a launching pad to engage the world, and then to come back and actually enrich the study and the learning that takes place in the classroom, is really one of the proven ways of creating a life's education. So every co-op, whether it's a doorway that you want to continue to walk through or one that you want to close and lock up as quickly as you can, becomes this remarkable learning experience that you get to take with you. So there's no failure, right? And of course, that's what we know about life. Every experience, no matter how daunting or wonderful, actually becomes a well from which we can draw. So that remains true at Antioch. The idea of co-op, I think what we've done is helped to create greater tools for students to contextualize those experiences, for them to bring them back to the classroom, for them to kind of record them and remember them. There's more learning technology that we can use now. We can stay connected, but not over-connected, and not overprotective of students as they go out and experience this. Here's one thing that I'll say, Jean. When I talk to alums from any decade, and they come back and they're worried about, are the students as good as they used to be? Is this place? And it's like all this self-design stuff is just like let people do whatever they want. And then they sit down, and after 10 minutes or 20 minutes of talking to students and hearing about the co-op experience and understanding what's happening in the class and how we're really engaging both of those worlds, they turn and they look at their fellow alums from their class and say, they're just like us. This place continues to draw students for whom it is a powerful and almost irresistible offer of education. And I think that continues to be true, and co-op is really at the center of that.
Thank you, Tom. Dial *3 to be put on there and ask a question. We also have some questions by people who are listening online and who are writing in questions. So we have a question from somebody with a screen name Pasha, who said, when I visited for my 20th reunion, I noted main building was closed. When will that be reopened? Tom, are there plans to reopen main building? I know that students have been calling it the world's largest lawn ornament so far.
Yeah, I think that's really funny. It is funny, actually. I was at the commencement where that was in a student speech. Well, thanks for the question, Pasha. And, this comes up every time we have large groups of alums or small groups, and it certainly is a symbolic challenge or hole in our current efforts to revive the college. So here's what I would say: we are on that. We are not just putting it on a future planning board. We are on that in a major way. We actually use Main Hall. When the weather permits. It's not a very hospitable place. We don't have heat in it now, so but we do think this last reunion we used it as a staging area for the reunion. We have tours. We did a music event on Main Lawn late last spring. We are focused on how to bring that building back as more than just a really pretty background for class photographs.
Thank you, Tom. Students, what do you think about the state of the campus, and how have you found campus life? What do you think about dorms life, the farm? All three students are raising their hands, and they all have a lot to say about that. So we'll start with Asher.
Thank you. So in talking about Main Hall, I know there might be some concerns about space to use, but I can definitely say academically, I don't think it's affecting us to not have that building available. Currently, most of our classes are taking place in two buildings that the college has put a lot of focus on into making sure they are super prepared for the classes that are taught in there. So I know right now one of my favorite classes might just be one of my favorite classes because the view outside of that building is so amazing. As well, it doesn't hurt that the classroom has 5 TVs in it. So even though it's my largest class with only 16 people in it, it's such an amazing space to be productive and get so much done. And there's not really much of a concern of finding space in general within the student body.
How about you, Kate?
I know the biggest thing on campus right now is ghost hunting. People are really interested in the decommissioned buildings right now for that, so it definitely adds a little bit of lore and a little bit of fun to student interaction. But aside from that, I would definitely agree. We're not naive. We understand that this is a small school, and we're happy to be in a place that values where the money is going. So if it's best put into the 2 buildings where we spend our time in classes and we can have really incredible resources there, and function within those spaces well. I think I can speak for all of us and say that we're really happy with that. And aside from that, I'm actually working on something called the Tree Team, which is just a fun little way to say that we are figuring out the net carbon output of the campus. So we're really trying to figure out how we can make this school actually embody the sustainability that we strive to achieve, and to have quantifiable data on what it is that we're doing to be an active member of the community and of this country. So,
thank you, Kate. That sounds so interesting. Delaney, how do you feel about the campus life?
I think it's been a lot of fun. I also agree with my friends over here that the state of Bain Hall really hasn't affected our academic standing. I think I take more pride in the fact that the college would rather spend money on things that are useful to us, that we use almost every day, that will positively impact our education, than trying to rebuild or fix up an old building that we might never actually use. So I think that is definitely a better thing to spend their money on. In general, campus is really nice. There's a lot of funding to go to student spaces to make us feel comfortable, and to really listen to what we want to put on campus and what we think is going to make our lives here prettier, better, and just more fun.
Thank you. So, Kate, you mentioned our carbon footprint. I know that we've gone through great progress in our sustainability recently, Tom. We've recently been listed as part of the Sierra Club Green College list. Can you tell us a bit more about sustainability on campus?
Yeah, sure. And actually, I vote for the three of these students for president. I really appreciated their answers. And the idea of, I've referred to this earlier, the areas of practice, is that these are not the core of the curriculum, but the experiential container of an Antioch education has to have some shape. And it can be malleable, and it needs to be for each student. But we've defined 5 areas of practice, and one of them is environmental sustainability. And the idea of a practice isn't just something that you take some classes on, or that you get a check mark, or even that you make a list, as we just did yesterday. The Princeton College Guide listed us as one of the green schools in America, too. We're proud of that. But it reflects our practice of sustainability, not that we've simply invested tens of millions of dollars in LEED certified buildings. The Antioch Farm, our food program, the fact that we have this amazing, small but really mighty environmental science program, the tree project that Kate just mentioned, the opportunity to have co-ops that help students acquire skills and know-how and experience that will allow them to contribute to the sustainability of this planet and to the huge existential challenges that we're facing as inhabitants of planet Earth. So we're proud to be not just we're not just checking off boxes. We're creating an experiential environment in which we learn the habits of environmental stewardship, and also in the other 4 areas of practice. That's the same focus. I hope I get a chance to mention the other 4. We've talked a lot about co-op. That's at the center of one. Work, world, and resilient community.
Would you like to introduce us briefly to the other areas of practice?
Very, very briefly. So the other 3, environmental sustainability, democracy, deliberative democracy, diversity and social justice is one of the practices. Creativity and story is a 3rd. Well-being is a 4th. And I mentioned work, world, and resilient community. Those are the containers together that actually help guide the experiential parts of an Antioch education.
Press star 3 to ask a question. Asher, you mentioned one of your favorite classes earlier. Can you tell us more about that? What is your favorite class on campus this term?
My favorite class this term on campus has to be my Foundations of Political Economy class. So, before I came here, I did not have a great idea of history behind politics. I knew what existed nowadays. I knew how our country functioned and maybe some about how other countries functioned, but I never really thought to understand where that came from. Well, the way I've learned this is through a class that has 6 people in it. And the class itself is Foundations of Political Economy. In it, we've been going through time, reading historical text about different views and points of views from many different philosophers, and connecting it to how we got to the systems we have today and how we can use it to address the inequalities of today. In that class as well, I noticed yesterday I had one of the best political discussions of my life, that without the knowledge I've learned from that class and from the teacher, Sean Payne, I would have never been able to have. And although it's just a foundations class, it's just a class that I figured, oh yeah, it'd be good to get some credit out of the way this term. It's been absolutely impactful on the way I view the world, the way I read my news, and the way I want to study from now on.
Thank you, Asher. I kind of want to take that class now. How about you, Kate? What's your favorite class this term?
So I am really into environmental science, if you haven't kind of picked up on that by now. And my advisor is actually the professor of my environmental science class. And I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I've really been enjoying it because it's really meeting everyone at a base level and exploring what it is to live in this environment and how we are kind of the founders of our future right now as far as environmental wellness and exploring new energy sources and the ways that we make an impact on our space. A lot of it is things that we take for granted, pollution, waste, and it sounds kind of simple, but I just think that it's really important that we all kind of start on the same page, especially as a college dedicated to sustainability, so that we can move forward with a clearer understanding of how we can be better stewards.
Thank you. How about you, Delaney? What's your favorite class?
I really enjoy my general psychology class. So it's also taught by my academic advisor, so that's a lot of fun to see. But it's just giving me a new perspective of psychology. So a lot of the times when you talk about these different psychological theorists, you only get the theories that they have presented and have become really impactful on the psychology community. But with the professor that we have, Teo, he is giving it from a different perspective. He is forcing us to recognize that everyone has bias, everyone has a different perspective, and how this can play into not only theories, but also just how people act and how you can apply that to psychology. And so I think that's been very helpful to get that base level of psychology with the understanding that no scientist is an island.
Thank you, Delaney. We're going to take another question now from Patrick Tovat from the class of 1966. Patrick, are you online?
I am.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and I'm very much enjoying this dialogue.
Oh, thank you.
My question is for Tom. Going back to the increasing the student body, has there been any thought to inviting some of us oldsters who left the college without our degrees to come back and complete our studies? I mean, we would be not only an intergenerational element in the student body, but we would also be full-paying customers. I don't know how many of us there would be each year, but I would suggest probably 4 or 5, and I would certainly be eager to be one of them.
I love that idea. I want to turn it over to my colleague students here to sort of have their response. But I first want to just make sure that we get it clear that we're not doing 1966 tuition rates.
No, I understand that. No, the whole point of being an alumni and a supporter of the college is definitely to accept the current tuition rates. I would love it if I could come back at 1966 tuition rates.
The students actually raised their hands, so they're either going to reject you, they're going to read your application and reject you, or they're going to admit you. Let's see what the admissions committee has to say.
Okay.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I think just to kind of do a little bit of a spin-off, right now intergenerational relationships are in a decline, and they are also so important to our well-being and our growth as young people. So I think I speak for all three of us sitting in here and probably many others that we would welcome you with open arms and would be really pleased and excited to have you back on campus with us.
Delaney, I see you nodding.
I just want to say that this question made us all smile so much. We all, I think as Kate said, would definitely agree in accepting and welcoming anyone who wants to come to college to come and own their education. Definitely.
Asher wants to say something as well.
And I think as a student community, we've put a great value on learning from each other. This year we do have a couple students who this is either their second time in college or they just lean on the older side. And I know I've learned a lot from these people. I've learned some just stuff about being responsible in my life, but I've also really learned how to value my education from these people. And I love this idea you have because it's people who generally would already understand the Antioch way, be able to bring in that spin about how things used to be, and just be able to use what they've taken from Antioch into the real world and developed to bring it back here and teach all of us some more.
Thank you. We only have a couple minutes left. So I thought I would ask students what their hopes are for their Antioch adventures for the next 4 years. I'll maybe give you a few minutes to think about it, unless somebody has a hot take on your hopes for the next 4 years. Asher seems to be ready to go.
So I came to this college to experience many different things. At one point in my 4 years, I plan on going abroad. At one point in my 4 years, I plan on taking a co-op that I is going to challenge me in so many different ways and to be like nothing I've done before. As well, in the next 4 years, I expect to learn enough to be able to develop some more of my own opinions as a person, to be able to develop some of my own ideas, and to be able to truly stand confidently by what I have to say as a person, using the knowledge and skills I've learned from the faculty and staff here. So I hope after my 4 years in Antioch, I'll be able to really go out as my own person in the world, as well as being backed by all the experiences, skills, and especially people that I've met here.
Kate?
I'm really excited about this experience, and as I mentioned before, this is my second time back in college, so I feel like I'm coming into it with a little bit clearer view of what I wish to accomplish, and that is being able to have the education and the understanding of what it is that I care about to succinctly address problems that I feel are really on the horizon for us with environmental justice. So coming through Antioch and being able to experience firsthand and through each year ways that I can contribute in meaningful senses is really what I'm hoping to get out of my experience, as well as a really solid foundation to go on to grad school.
Thank you. Delaney?
I think in these next 4 years, I also really want to study abroad, and I also want to just have a better understanding of myself and how other people operate and see the world, and just being able to bridge the two communities together and go on to grad school and the rest of my life with a better understanding of how this world works and how I can positively and effectively impact it.
Thank you. If you want to support those students with their Antioch adventure, go on antiochcollege.edu/donate. And I'll leave the last word to our president, Tom Manley.
I think we're almost out of time, but I couldn't say more eloquently or articulately what an Antioch education's about than Delaney, Kate, and Asher have. If you're sitting on the fence wondering whether you should support the college, support these students, support this Antioch adventure, don't hold back. That's not what life's about. That's not what an Antioch education's about. You create your pathway forward. That's what these students are doing, and that's what we're asking you to help us do.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this fall Tele-Townhall, and thank you for all of you who listened through, and have a good night.
Thank you.